Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us live and in person tonight, and welcome to those who are actually streaming with us right now. You don't want to hear me, we want to hear this amazing content, so I'm just going to ask that you would give a really warm welcome to Brett Ullman.
Tonight was the first night I realized that it got dark really early when I was driving up, and suddenly it's 4:30 and it's dark. How many of you, is this your first time ever hearing me speak? You have no clue who I am, but I'm here. 3/4 of you. Okay, let me give you 2 minutes on me and we'll get going. My name's Brett. I come from Ajax. Ajax, if you don't know, is just east of Toronto. It was a nice about 55-minute drive here. My background is education. I'm a trained high school phys ed chemistry biology teacher. Even though I never taught that, there were no high school jobs with the Toronto board. So my father, who was an elementary principal in Scarborough, got me an interview, and I did a year of behavioral students and did a class called Section 27. Basically, my kids came from jail and psychiatric institutions, and then I taught Rotary Science to grade 7s and 8s before becoming a full-time speaker because speaking began to grow. That was about 19 years ago, and I've been doing that ever since. And the only thing that's changed a little bit is COVID's changed the world of most speakers. I'm down about 50 talks a year, and so I went back to school, and I just graduated in August with my master's in counseling, and I now do psychotherapy, which I actually did this morning, and then I also speak as well. This is my newest talk, and I wonder how many of you would agree something changed in the last, it's not a COVID thing, but something changed in the last 5 years where we went from technology being this, it's okay, to I think we might be in trouble. Anybody open their phones for no reason, look around for 3 seconds and turn it off in the last little while? Who's willing to raise their hands? Like, isn't it interesting? Like, that's almost all of us now, all ages, all stages. And so this is where I began the research, which this talk is my only one that's not finished, but I've started speaking it because there's so much to walk through. So my goal tonight's really simple. It's to equip and empower you to be better in this conversation. Now, I'm sitting down. If you can't see me, I'm not moving. This chair doesn't swivel. I'm not swiveling. This is literally me. I speak on many topics, mental health being my largest, which is what I'm speaking tomorrow morning, but I had a breakdown 11 years ago, and I've never gotten better. I struggle with a pretty severe anxiety disorder. The root of my issues is sleep. I haven't slept through the night in 4,200 and something odd nights now. I have very little REM or deep sleep, so my body in the morning responds with brutal anxiety and panic, and then I go to bed exhausted and start the hamster wheel again. And 54 doctors later, I'm called an anomaly, and it's one of those things of trying to understand how do you continue towards feeling better and at the same time realize I'm 52, I might not ever be better. We'll walk a lot more through that. I also speak on parenting, and I know you guys did the parenting course kind of here. I have a talk on men, how do we be better fathers, better husbands, better boyfriends. My wife's always saying, that talk's also good for women, and I'm like, I am not making a talk like Women Navigating Everything by Brett Ullman. Like, the mansplaining that would happen in that kind of talk is never happening. I also speak on some of the tougher topics from sex and pornography, and this is kind of my newest one today. Oh, I'm also married with 2 kids. My wife's name is Dawn. She's a nurse. My daughter, Zoe, this is about 4 years old now, maybe 3. My daughter Zoe's it's November. Beginning her 4th year at McMaster. She wants to be a lawyer. And my son Ben is in his 3rd year at Queen's. He wants to be a psychologist. So my kids chose universities in 2 different directions, which makes for a lot of driving. And our newest addition to our family, which I just found out we have a lot in common, is our new English Bulldog, Phoebe. She's 4 months. She's great. She did bite me in the face 2 weeks ago, but that's probably my fault. I was somewhere I shouldn't have been in a moment. Anyways, she is amazing. So we're not going back. I hear from a lot of people with technology, if we could only go back. And I said to someone, we're not putting the genie back in the bottle, to which I was reprimanded at the end of my talk. And she said, Brett, we're Christians. We don't believe in genies. And I'm like, you're really missing what I'm trying to say. There was nothing there on a belief in genies. I didn't know if that was a thing, but we're not going back. But we can't put our head in the sand and say it's all fine, but we also can't go too far in the other spectrum, which is, have you ever heard the term Luddite? Like it's this fear or even hatred of technology. I'm at a talk a number of months ago, and a woman comes up and she's a little concerned. She said, "Can you tell me if we've done something wrong?" And I'm like, "All right." She said, "So we've had no tech in our house for the entire lives of our children." And I'm like, "Oh, like grade 6? Like, how old are your kids?" And she said, "Oh no, all high school. And one of them's graduating and heading off to university. And this is the problem. He's never used a computer, never used a laptop, has no idea how to use the internet, and is heading away to university. And their first struggle is they don't know how to sign in and have him pick his residence." And I'm like, yes, you've done a disservice. Like, you have not prepared him for the world he's heading into. You've actually protected him so much he's now at a disservice and is in a lot of trouble before he moves forward. And I do think we can do this, but I don't think we're currently okay. I don't. And I'm going to walk through this. So here's the outline. We're going to give you some statistics. We're going to look at social media. We're going to address loneliness and sexting. And when I talk about that, you'll understand why we must address it. Video games, music, and TV and streaming. And we will look at mental health, but from the perspective of technology today. And then a bit of conclusion and some resources, and we're done. And the same thing I'll say tomorrow morning is, I hope that we're not done. I hope that a talk like this is a catalyst, that it's a spark, and it sparks conversations amongst you as families and friends and just as people. So how we engage with technology affects everything. It affects our body, our mind, our soul, and our Christian witness. I'm at my gym a couple years ago, just as COVID was kind of ending, and a guy said to me as I'm working out, he says, "So, just want to let you know, I'll never set foot in a church the rest of my life because of you people." And I'm like, "You people?" I said, "Like tall people?" And he laughed, and he's like, "No, you Christians." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, the way all of you Christians acted through COVID online, I will never set foot in a church, because if that's Jesus, I want nothing to do with him." Have you ever just felt heavy and quite sad that our debates, no matter where we stand on things, have ramifications into eternity in many cases? I do believe our worldviews affect our values, and our values affect our actions. In 1 Corinthians, all things are lawful, but not all are helpful. All things are lawful, but I will not be dominated by anything. And I think many of us are being dominated by technology today. As a side note, I love tech. I'm an early adopter. This is my Aura Ring. This does sleep tests on me every night. I love tech. If there's an update, I automatically go, "Do you want to switch to the other thing?" If that's going to feedback, I'm happy to. Or I can hold it. Let me try holding it for a sec.
Yeah.
Leave that here. Okay.
That's what it is.
And where was I? Oh, I love tech. So none of this tonight, if you're kind of going, he's going to tell me to get rid of my technology, that's not the conversation in any way, shape, and form. So I began to do what I love to do, which is I like to research. And so I began to read. And this is the first bunch of books that I read. And now I'll just say as a side note, not all books deserve to be read cover to cover. Some books do, but not all of them. And the ones on the far left, the 6 of them, are my favorite. Now, for anyone who's quickly grabbing a phone, you can take pictures tonight all you want. My website at the very top is all my social media, but it has an Amazon link. And there's categories of parenting and mental health and media, and every book that I suggest you would read is all in there as well. This is also one of 2 talks that has a Google Doc to go along with it on my website, which has all the main thoughts, links, people you should follow on this, all those kinds of things. Then I read about 100 studies. I watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos, TED Talks, talked to a few thousand people. And I remember one day closing my laptop and I said to my wife, "No, I quit." Where on earth do you start? I love navigating everything. That's why my talks are all being rebranded with it. But I'm like, where do you start? It's so big. And then I saw a TED Talk where a guy said, "Start where you're in alignment." So let's begin with that. I wonder if we can all agree. Not all tech is bad. Not all tech is good. But tech is powerful and can affect us in many ways. Fair? I think all of us can go, yeah, that's a fair statement. Now, technology is awesome. Like music, I'm 52, if you're around my age, that I can tell my Alexa to turn on any song in human history, basically, other than about 10 musicians. I can't get over that. I just love it. Even just driving up here in my car, I just tell my phone to turn on whatever album. Podcasts, I also did a podcast on the way up here. Social media, I posted 30 minutes ago, setting up at your church, and my prayer team will pray between now and tomorrow, and my prayer team is all over the world. Like, how amazing is that? That sometime I have a guy who always writes me from England, and he'll say, just want you to know our church is praying for you, like from England to here. Maps, I love maps. I used Waze to get here. Anybody use Waze? It's like, get off the highway or don't get off the highway. I love communication, calendars, FaceTime, exercise. I love that. I know how many steps I use and everything else. But here's the problem we have today. And parents, I just have to be honest that many of us have not helped our kids in this conversation. We actually have done the opposite. We know in research that it says if children spent long periods of time using electronic devices, and it's against the guidelines, there could be consequences. And we all did this. I propped my kids up with videos when they were young. Like, you're supposed to have zero technology till you're 2. Zero. And what we do is we do things, even though we know there may be consequences. This quote says that too often our kids today are reprimanded and punished for not knowing lessons that we have yet to teach and they have yet to learn. Now, I do believe that students, you need to begin to take ownership of your own technology use in your own life. This idea that it's parents yelling downstairs, get off of Fortnite, has to stop, right? This is a very different conversation as opposed to, we give to you, here's your tech use. Why should we do things? Why should we not? But there's a reason we didn't talk about this is we didn't have this. We had music, but it was a record. And you'd buy a single record for $13.99, and then you'd realize you like one song. Unlike today, where it doesn't matter. Podcasts, social media, and FaceTime didn't exist. Maps existed, but they were big pieces of paper. Anybody remember a triptych from CAA? It was a booklet. If you're going to drive to Florida, there were no such, you could have a huge map, or it would tell you, go this far. It might take you from Peterborough to Ajax. You turn the page, then it's Ajax to Niagara Falls. Communication existed, but it was a phone, and it was tethered to a wall. Until we went to Radio Shack and bought a 100-foot cord and stretched it into our bedroom. So the idea that we can all have a phone in our rooms didn't exist. Calendars were just pieces of paper. And exercise, we had tech. It was like a Walkman. You strap this with a single album, a cassette into your hip, and you'd go for a run. It would always fall off into the water. This was our world. There was no such thing as streaming. You don't hop on Disney when you go home tonight and watch Loki season 2. You watch whatever TV show you're watching when it's on, like Thursday at 9 o'clock. Because if you didn't watch it then, you'd never know when to see it. But the arrival of the smartphone changed everything, not just for teenagers, for everyone. And I would put forth that it's my friends and adults who are struggling more than our students. We are floundering as adults. And what I'm going to encourage you to do for the next few months is watch. Watch people. Watch people coming out of work, coming out of church, what they do when they're alone at a bus stop, when you're at a restaurant and there's a table full of people who don't know what to do other than having our phones out. So statistics. First off, all statistics are wrong. Statistics are a snapshot of a time and a place in the world that doesn't exist anymore. So if I say something's 80, might be 90, might be 70, it means it's not 10. And statistics are about you as students, they're about us as adults, and whether you like Jordan Peterson or don't, he says it doesn't mean it's a problem, but it's revealing. So how much time do we spend on technology? Approximately 7 to 11 hours per day. Now, I'm being very conservative. Some statistics go higher. 2 to 3 hours of this, again, very conservative, are on social media. Now, the biggest line from this is this: not all screen time is equal. So we can't just talk about screen time because it's different. Watching something or playing a game or reading a book online or doing research for a paper are all different things. So we can't just, screen time in my day was TV and movies. It was very easy and then became video games, but there wasn't other things. Now, research is actually real research and not, I went on Google and the top 10 things that popped up were. So This is a study, and I just want to help you understand. So this says Elhai et al. In 2017. So Elhai, I don't know who it is, but someone named Elhai. Et al. Is and others in Latin. So Elhai and a bunch of other people in 2017 did a research study, usually at a university, and they found that smartphone use was shown to negatively impact well-being, physical health, and academic performance the day you get it. It's almost immediate. Now, I put a bunch of other studies. I have 230 or 40, and I was going to put them all up there, and I'm like, I don't think I need to do that to prove a point. The point is, research says this. It also says the moment you get a phone, it increases daytime sleepiness and decreased sleep quality at night. Social media use has been shown to decrease well-being and life satisfaction and increase depression and anxiety. Now, that is so nuanced, that term, depression and anxiety, because it's not just like if you got rid of a smartphone, we wouldn't have it. Statistics from what I read, 30 to 40% of modern day anxiety might be from technology. Now, what research like this means is that if you have a different opinion, I just say this gracefully, you're wrong. Peer-reviewed research means not only did someone do research, another person at another university did the same study trying to prove them wrong and prove them right, meaning it's just truth. We also know research, in 2012, something happened. And if you ever study sociology, everyone tries to give an answer. No one really knows why, but in 2012, the world changed. Now, the iPhone came out in 2007, and this was when my daughter was in grade kindergarten, roughly around then, but 2012 is when social media became the norm, and when I think we began to see the comparison effect online. Everyone's happy, I'm not. Everyone looks healthy, I'm not. Like it's this comparison game. Now, there was also other things that changed. This increased academic pressure we have. It was a few years, I think it was grade 11 or 12, I went with my daughter and her friend to the university fair in Toronto, which I think for the first time is back after COVID. Every university in the province is there. There's a college one as well, and it was palpable, the pressure of students that you're under today. Changes in family structures, substance abuse became normal. It is when parenting styles shifted as well in the late 1990s. This is when we came to the part where, we stopped preparing kids and we began to see that we didn't prepare, and now we're having issues with how people are being raised. The more we as adults overfunction, the more our students will underfunction. This is called a meta-study. This is the last research thing. It's a study of studies. Look at the bottom one. If you spend 2 hours a day on social media, heightened symptoms of ADHD, impaired emotional and social intelligence, tech addiction, I might argue the word might be compulsion, but we can leave it, social isolation, impaired brain development, and disrupted sleep. No one here of any age would say, Brett, that's what I want. Like, give me a couple years and I'm going to make it there. Like, no one wants that. I love Kelly. She says there's no shame in admitting that you were previously speaking from a less informed place. There comes a time when it's okay to say, maybe, like, this is having a posture of learning, right? A growth mindset where we haven't learned everything, no matter what age we're at. I love the quote by Maya Angelou, social activist and poet, who once said this: do the best you can until you know better, and when you know better, do better. I wonder what you see with technology today. Here's just some of the things that I see. I live in South Ajax, kind of on Lake Ontario. Parents with kids in strollers with YouTube playing in the cup holder while they walk. No one would say that kid's going to turn out well in a few years, right? There are ramifications from these kinds of things. I'm walking past the park a few months ago, and there's, when you just look, there's a woman pushing a kid on a swing, and there's something wrong. I'm like, in my head, what's wrong with this picture? The kid wasn't smiling. I've never not seen a kid smile on a swing. And then I realized the mom's on her phone, flicking with her thumb, Instagram, I don't know, TikTok, while she pushes the kid in the swing, fully ignoring the kid from the moment I could see them till the moment I walked past them. People who unlock their phones every 7 minutes, who touch them almost 3,000 times a day, no downtime, staggering growth and anxiety, students being sextorted, we'll come back to that, bad sleep, bad nutrition. Now, there's consequences for our actions. In the book iGen, Jean says adolescence is now an extension of childhood rather than the beginning of adulthood. Now, this is expanding a little bit beyond just media, which are the ones that are kind of with the bold on it, but the way we've changed parenting and the way we're now using technology is creating ramifications. So here's just some. Driver's licenses. In my day, everyone got their driver's license. 96%. Now, in my day, it was called a 365. It's like your G1. But you could get your 365, and the moment you had your 365, you could get your license. So we all did. We got in one line, got in another line, we had our licenses. Today, grade 12s, we're at 42% of people have their license and dropping like a rock. It's literally a straight down line. Now, I always say to people, why don't you have your license? And here's what I hear everywhere across this country. Well, we live in a big city. There's lots of traffic, and we drive a van. We're seeing changes, right? Like, no teenager, when I was growing up, if someone said, can you drive a bus? We'd say, yeah, I can, we could drive anything. Today, we're seeing parents' fears become students' fears, because you didn't create that as a student. I always say, who told you that? And they're like, well, my mom or my dad. Like, our fears have become our kids. When my daughter was 14, we're driving past our church, and she says, hey, can I drive in the parking lot when I'm 15? And I'm like, no, you can drive right now. And then we went, and we drove 12 kilometers an hour in little circles. One day she said a powerful question to me. She said, Dad, I drive a Santa Fe XL, which means it's this much bigger than a regular Santa Fe. It's like a mid-size SUV. My wife drives a Prius, which is what I have outside right now. But she said, your car's bigger. And I said, yeah, you'll be fine. She paused and went, yeah, I'll be fine. Can you imagine if I had said, you're right, honey, you can't drive a mid-size SUV. Like, you picture the ramifications in her life of that. Part-time jobs are down because parents don't want kids to work. Religious affiliation is down. Dating is down. I'm invited into a church a few years ago in Toronto for 200 young adults. Young adults congregate often, and he says, can you come in because no one's dating? I'm like, no one's dating. He goes, no one's dating. So I get to the room, picture this, 200 people, which was awesome to see, and I said, so I'm going to talk on dating, but I was told no one's dating. Can you put up your hand if you're dating? No one. And I said, before I speak, can one person tell me why? You shouldn't, I didn't expect anyone to answer. Guy in the front row puts up his hand. He says, Brett, my mom told me whoever I go for a coffee with, I have to marry. Yep, that's why you're not dating. Now, what is that? Again, right? Parents' fears. Face-to-face interactions down. Face-to-face interactions down so much that here's this shift in the last 20 years. It used to be parents who'd say to me, my kids are never home. Grade 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, university, college, they're always out. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now it's this. My kids never leave the house. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They're always at home in their room, usually alone. Going out at all's changed. Sleep is down. Exercise is down. Nutrition's down. What is up is overfunctioning, helicopter parenting, safety, anxiety and depression, screen time. Fear is through the roof. And purposelessness is a fascinating one. I am just beginning research on this because I haven't had a speaking date now in about 5 years where after the talk or through social media, a parent hasn't said this. Brett, I have and it's almost across the board men. It's not always men, but usually. It's the growth of the purposeless young man growing into the purposeless young adult. Here's what they say. Brett, and these are all Christian families. Brett, we have a son dropped out of school, doesn't work or works 4 hours a week at Tim's or Wendy's and smokes weed every day, plays video games 50, 60 hours a week, lost, aimless. I have no answer to this right now, but I do know this. We have to start addressing this. 1 in 7 men now don't work in North America. Not retired, not looking for work, just don't work. And 1 in 4 20-year-old men out of school don't work anymore. These are huge things. As a new counselor, we are inundated with young men who are struggling, but often it is their parents who are struggling. So I don't know, but we as people, as churches, as educators, we need to begin to at least say, something's going wrong. What might we be able to do to start addressing it? So with tech, all I would say is this, is what you're currently doing helping support the life you're working towards? If it is, awesome. Keep doing it. If it's not, The definition of insanity is just repeating the same thing over and over, looking for a different result. I don't think we bring the best versions of ourselves anywhere. Church, school, relationships, work. Like in any environment, we don't bring our best foot forward. And what we're not changing, we're choosing. And so my encouragement is to intentionally build your life. I would say, as a side note, there must be from us as an adult a progression of parenting. And as students, you should be progressing. The way you view technology in grade 4 should not be the same way you view it in grade 8, should not be the same way you view it in grade 12. And I do believe this: if you can't show maturity in the smaller things, you can't show them in the bigger things. When I do my parenting talk, and we have parents with younger kids, I always say that students should start making their lunches in kindergarten on their own. And people are like, why? And I'm like, because very quickly in the grade, 2 or 3, young children are going to want phone technology. Phones have cameras. Phones have big consequences inside them. So if you can't do the little stuff, how would we ever deal with the big things? I like this. Sloan says, the hardest part of raising a child is teaching them to ride bicycles. A shaky child on a bicycle for the first time needs both support and freedom. And the realization of this is what the child will always need hits kind of hard. I really, really like that. And a great book by the Self-Driven Child just talks about we as adults, we need to give some kind of autonomy to our students, to our kids, to make some of these decisions for themselves. Today we have parents of university, college-age kids who are still reading texts and still checking their mail and still calling and telling them what their agendas are at university or college and laying out clothes when they're at home, right? Not good. So social media, can we all agree photos are not an adequate depiction of real-life events? Now, tonight, for those of you watching online, different, or those of you who are watching it, on YouTube later, that's different, but the idea of I can go to a restaurant or I can see a picture of a restaurant are just very different. TikTok, whether you use it or not, is funny, it's unique, it's informative, and it's tailored for you like no other site on the planet. How many people are on TikTok, by the way? Quick show of hands. My hand's up. Oh, come on. There's only a few hands. There's more of you. Okay. So here's what I'd say with TikTok. You want to know who you are and what you look at? Take a piece of paper or an iPad out and look at 50 videos. 5 of them will be advertisements. 5 of them are TikTok sending you down a pathway that you don't currently look at. So you may hate sports and you suddenly get like Buffalo Bills, football tackles. And if you go, nope, you will never get that again. The other 40 videos are what you watch. I'm at a talk and a gentleman during Q&A, which Q&A has become an interesting thing, but he stands up. It's a room full of teenagers and parents, and he says, Brett, TikTok is nothing but half-naked women in bikinis. And I said, sir, you realize it's an algorithm, right? And he didn't understand what an algorithm is. And I had to explain to him, what you watch, it gives you. And I watched a very embarrassed man sit down. But it's literally fascinating because it's you. Now, you can use that for good as well. I do most of my research now on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, because it sends me very quickly some really great people who I then go off to their websites or other things. But TikTok's also causing mental health issues, growing lack of social skills. It's creating us being unhealthy physically, and often we're self-medicating. Rather than dealing with the emotions of what we're feeling, we are just escaping and distracting ourselves from something online. I do agree. Tim says, what if instead of barring our students from engaging in social platforms, we were instead building into them the skills they need to make these decisions themselves? And we as adults need to learn this as well. Impulse control, no mindless scrolling. Now, some people back when I was younger, we would watch TV for half an hour to decompress. Today we might look at videos or something else, and I don't think that's a bad thing, but when you suddenly realize 2 hours have passed and you're still scrolling through videos, and then you wonder why you can't sleep an hour later, there are some consequences. And critical thinking is probably the number one thing. Just because someone has influence, which is the ability to post, doesn't mean that they have the authority or the right to post. And I hope we can grasp the difference. Some people have 2 million followers but have no right to say anything online because they're just wrong. One of the biggest things we're seeing with mental health today is predominantly middle school and high school girls diagnosing themselves with mental health issues, like, I'm bipolar. Girl recently said to me, well, I'm bipolar. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. That's a big deal. I said, how did you find that out? And she says, well, I was on a video, I think she said on YouTube, and the person said, if you're happy sometimes and sad others, you have bipolar. And I'm like, no, that means you're human. Like, that's just natural. It was a few summers ago, and if anyone likes avocados, they began to, if you put avocados in water, they'll stay, like they won't go bad. And then if you are online, you realize if one person makes a video, it's doing well, everyone else makes the same video. And so everyone was posting it. And then the Avocado Farmers Association are online going, please don't. You'll get very, very sick if you do this. Then the FDA, the health people in the US, had to come online. People are spending millions of dollars saying people are getting incredibly sick because someone who had no right to say anything posted something online and they were just wrong. Can you tell the difference? What's fake and what's not? In this article, they say 70% of adults are confident they can spot misinformation. When polled, only 20% could correctly identify a telltale sign of a genuine post. And amongst students, teenagers, 75% say that sure, I can spot a misinformation online, but only 1 in 10 actually can. Most of what you see online is fake. The prank things, fake. The guy who was shot to death recently in the supermarket, not fake. People are doing pranks now and getting bigger and bigger. He was in the US, someone felt threatened, shot and killed the person. Like, that's not fake, that's just real. But do we look at sensational headlines? Do we challenge just because someone says something, it's true? Chris Martin says, anyone can promote wild theories without recourse, and our personalized worlds prevent us from seeing opposing points of view. I'm going to encourage you to fill your social media feeds with people who challenge you with good stuff, so that every time I'm online, it's not just, now I get English Bulldogs all the time, I'm happy with that, but I want more than that. And I follow people who I disagree with, because I have not arrived. I'm always learning. I'm always at a place where God, like, is this something I should learn? Is there something new in this? You ever heard the term confirmation bias? Pretty quickly when you're online, everything that you see will be confirming what you believe about life. And it's okay to be challenged by things. I love this image. I found this on Instagram. It said, we think the world is this crack in the egg. It's us and them. And then they said the actual division's probably like this little crack on the side. So Mark Sayers, if you want to follow an interesting, we would call him a thought leader in the Christian church. He's like a Christian thought leader. He says, how do we remain non-anxious in a system that continually spirals into new and all-encompassing emotional toxicity? It doesn't matter what you post online, someone posts the opposite. I post recently looking for someone we want like a dog sitter for our puppy, we're going away, and a bunch of people posted great things, and right away someone's posting some negative things about bulldogs. Like, you just can't win. It doesn't matter, you say yes, someone says no. But how do we remain non-anxious? We as parents must model good digital citizenship. We as parents can't expect our kids to do anything if we're not doing that. And students, you need to take more ownership of your own life and look at where will what you're doing now lead you in a few years. So some social media tips, these are all online for you. Decrease smartphone use by 1 hour a day. Could you do it? I got a study at the end of the talk, which is why I put 1 hour a day. Turning off as many notifications as possible. Every time your watch taps, every time your phone dings or vibrates in your pocket, you get a dopamine hit. You get a chemical to the brain. What do 500,000 dopamine hits do to a human? We don't know. We're all the experiment, and we're finding we're not doing well. So every time a notification pops up, look at it and go, is this worthwhile? A couple years ago, Twitter sends me one. It says, someone who hasn't tweeted in a while, tweet it. Like, I went online and quickly deleted that. Some of them, though, I get. Like, if people text me, I want to get that, but I don't need a notification that someone just posted something randomly. Follow content specifically so your social media feeds are filled with good information. I would implore us, especially as faith-based people, stop posting, liking, sharing, and viewing fear-based material. every day. Everything's collapsing. Everything's bad. Don't eat this. Banks are it's the whole world is not like that. And I'm not saying there's bad stuff happening in the world. I would encourage us as families to use the Screen Time app on the iPhone, and if you're Android, the Digital Wellbeing. So we have yearly family meetings, and we talked as a family. We're concerned. We're even my wife and I, about how we use tech, and we all looked at each other's tech. And we'd look at the Screen Time. How are we using it? And we kind of walked through that. Did everything just shut down? Oh, maybe we're back. Okay. And then days a week use social media. This was a young university-age girl who said this to me. Every Sunday night, she deletes their social media apps off her phone, has a school week, and on Friday night at dinner, she reinstalls them. Have you ever had a moment where you just look at someone and say, you are a genius? She still gets to use her social. She tells her friends, I'm not online throughout the week. Her friends would say, why? She says, because I'm in school. I want to get really good marks, and she's in school. I'm like, that could work for everybody. Loneliness. We are the most connected generation ever, yet simultaneously the most disconnected generation ever. In the book called The Journal of Adolescence, they talk about how in 2012, 18% of students were lonely. 2018, 37%. 2 months ago, 57%. And loneliness is now, it is a huge issue. It used to be just my generation, men 40 through 60, and I still think we're the loneliest group of people. How do you know, for guys my age? Look at how we survived COVID. My wife was always on Zoom with little panels of all her friends. We as most men just hunkered down and waited it out, alone, never doing things with other people. Most men my age don't go out with friends. We don't go do things. As a therapist, I'm often saying, where are your social networks? But there's a quote in a book that says, the despair of living an unobserved life. Smartphones cannot serve as a favorable surrogate, meaning the online world cannot be your only world. It is a world. It is true, right? It is connection, but it can't be our only connection. Simon's talking to young adults, and he says they don't have coping mechanisms in their lives. And I would say this for all of us. We're not turning to people. We're turning to apps and tech and shows. Amen. There's something about people that's so important, right? Being in front of each other. But the moment we feel emotions these days, we quickly push them away and just don't sit in that and walk through them. So here's a really easy question. Could you add more face-to-face social connections into your week? Every Sunday night my phone dings. It dings a few times. First, my wife and I, there's a quick connect with my wife, Dawn. We look at the week. Both our kids are at university, who's cooking when, and when am I out, and when is she out, and that kind of stuff. Another one says, can I add more face-to-face connection? Is there a moment I could go out for lunch with a buddy, or in the summer maybe go golfing, or just do something? And sexting, dealing with technology. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know what this is, it's when someone sends a half-naked, naked photo to someone. Now, a woman says to me a few years ago, she actually said afterwards at my booth, she says, well, Brett, I guess your kids don't have Snapchat. And I'm like, why do you say it like that? Kind of like, I'm so enlightened as the speaker that my kids don't have Snapchat. I'm like, of course they have Snapchat. It's the number one way students communicate. And then she said, well, can't you send naked photos on Snapchat? And I'm like, yeah, but I can send you a naked photo with photos and email. And she said, why are you sending me naked photos? And I'm like, you're really missing what I'm trying to say to you right now. I'm not sending you anything. But it's not about the app. It's about what you do with the app. So sexting, people sending photos like this, it's almost always, but not always, a guy asking and a girl giving. And people say to me, when I speak to students and young adults in universities, they say this, you're just old. I'll go, yep. I am not 17. I am 52. But if you want to have a debate on how this modern sexting is a biblically healthy expression of biblical sexuality, you will never win that discussion. You won't win it from a prophetic, like a biblical standpoint, and you will never win the practical one, because the practical one is the one that breaks my heart, and leaders and educators every day, all over this province and all over the world. I'm speaking in Ottawa a number of years ago. A young girl walks up and says, do you want to hear my sexting story? I always pause when someone says that. Like, I don't want to say yes, but I'm like, yeah. Then I'm like, do I know you? She's like, do you watch hockey? I'm like, yeah. She's a Canadian Olympic hockey team. She said, so my boyfriend and I are struggling in our relationship. He asked me for a topless photo. I sent it to him. We broke up almost immediately after that. He mailed that photo to his friends. They mailed it to their friends. They mailed it to their friends. She said it's on every porn site in the entire world. She said, I'm playing hockey in, I think she said Lithuania. And as I walked into the change room, my naked body is posted all as the other team taunts her. Then she looks me in the eye and her lip quivers as she begins to cry, and she says, if one person in my life, parents, pastors, teachers, leaders, if one person had said to me, that doesn't have to be you, maybe I would have made a different choice, but no one ever spoke about it. My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. So here's why we have to address it more than anything else. So self-generated child sexual abuse material, sexting. So this is not grade 9 and 10. This is 9 and 10-year-olds. We're 3% in 2019, which is staggering. It's 15% in 2020. Anyone with me at you don't really know what to say? 11 and 12-year-olds is up to 13%. Middle schoolers, 13%. And high schoolers is 1 in 4. And here's what scares me from this research. There is zero difference between those who claim Christian faith and those who don't. We as Christians do life different. If we don't do life different, I begin to question what we claim to be. When the creator of the universe comes to reside in our lives, there should be some change in what we do, what we think, how we act, how we behave. And this scares me. The number of times we're hearing this happen overnight where someone, has anyone heard the term sextortion before? So extortion is like blackmailing you, but now they're doing it this way. So here are the stories that I hear, never ending. Father says to me, actually at a talk, I went to bed and my son sent me I went to bed and before morning, his son had taken his life. And here's what had happened. Someone had messaged him, hey, on Instagram or Snapchat. They moved over to another platform, began chatting. She sent a naked photo. He sent one. Then the person said, I'm actually not a woman. I'm actually so-and-so. I now know what school you go to, your family, your church, everyone. If you don't send me more money or videos, I'm going to let everyone know. And before morning, this kid didn't know what to do and ended up took his life. So I say this in all my parenting talks. Parents, we want our kids running to us, not from us. I want, where's my dad? Not, where's my dad, right? They're very different. And students, there's nothing, like I say to my 2 kids, there's nothing you could ever do in your entire life that would change how much I love you. I may be disappointed. It will not mean that I don't love you. This is where attachment parenting is paramount. We have a relationship where if something happens, your kids and you students come to your parents and say, I messed up. And if you can't go to your parents, you have pastors and leaders and other people, other adults in your lives. Every young adult, every child, every teenager, every middle schooler, high schooler, 5 adults you should have in your life. Beyond us as parents. My kids have counselors and coaches and pastors and aunts and uncles and other people. I want lots of people speaking into their life. If this ever happens to you, stop communication, don't comply, and tell an adult. CyberTip, this is all online for you, is a great site, and parents.thorn.org has a little module to walk you through this. One thing I'm learning more and more as I get older is prevention is everything. The I wish I didn't doesn't cut it with this. It is a how do we prepare you for life to make really good decisions? So video games, this is becoming an issue. It's now not uncommon for many people to play 3 to 7 to 10 hours per day. Notice I said people. It's men and women, and it's of every age and stage. Ask any therapist today. We're seeing marriages disintegrate. We're seeing people dropping out of college and university. We're seeing people failing out of all kinds of things. Now, no one needs a master's degree in counseling to realize that 7 hours a day of video games isn't serving anyone. So there's some research that came out. So back in my day, it was almost all men who played video games and very little women. Most recently, it's men and women who play games. But here's the difference. Women play video games, and then you turn the games off and have face-to-face conversation. You go for coffee, right? Sit and chat. Men, we play video games to the last moment physically, humanly possible. And there's consequences for that. We're missing out on people. It's interesting how people is the answer to so many things. I read some research a few years ago. It says the average college, university-age guy cannot look someone in the face and have a conversation. I remember bursting out laughing, going, that just can't be true. That day I was speaking at, it was one of the W's, Windsor, Waterloo, or Western. It was a university room, 1,000 students. They're all the exact same. I don't remember. And I said to the audience, I read a study today. Who thinks this is true? I told the study. Every single girl in the room put up their hand. I said, who thinks it's not true? Every single guy in the room put up their hand. So we need to use games. It's okay to play. And this is where we as adults, like I may watch a 3.5-hour Buffalo Bills game, and my son might play 3.5 hours of video games. It's still, right? It's still doing nothing. And we're going to talk at the very end how much time we should spend in these things. But is music any different? We're still chatting in our Christian world of paradigms that don't make any sense. We still say Christian music and it's good, and secular music and it's bad. That doesn't exist. Like, there's no biblical basis for Christian secular music. The Bible calls music a loud noise, like, which many of us might still say amen to. Here's the problem with Christian good, secular bad. If you believe that, you stop discerning, and not everything Christian is good, and not everything secular is bad. I'm at a talk, and a woman she's not angry, she's furious with me, like pointing in my face, and she says, you can't tell me a single secular song that's not evil. And I'm like, oh, challenge, accepted. How about Happy Birthday? Have you ever seen a cartoon where someone's like head explodes? Like, this woman could, like, her paradigm was so challenged by me saying Happy Birthday, she just packed up and walked away. If me saying Happy Birthday destroys your worldview, you need a new worldview. How about we have some discernment? There's what we might call praise and worship music, right? It's the music that we sing to, brings us to our knees, raises our hands. By the way, this is easy in life. This is very hard in life. God, I give you my music, my television, my gaming, my thought life, my all. But there's that praise and worship music. Then there's music we know we shouldn't listen to. But in the middle is a whole bunch of stuff. Some are made from faith-based musicians. One of my favorite rappers is a guy named NF. He just filled the Scotiabank Center recently. What I love is he talks about mental health. And like, I just love that but like, there's no language. Matt Carney's my favorite musician in the world, like a acoustic, almost like a hip hop beat with a bit of spoken word. I heard him in Costco the other day. And TV and streaming. I guess here's an easy way to say it. If I could just point at you with my little laser and I could take your phone and we'd plug it in and go through like your Netflix, what you watched recently, would everyone be okay with that? Many of us, the answer is no. If I took your phone and clicked on recent, the songs you listen to, would we be okay? Like, there's a disconnect between what we say and what we do as students, but as adults. Mental health. Please don't answer, but I'm just asking generically, are you okay? Because I don't think we're okay anymore. We always say that, iGeners, like younger students, look so happy online, making goofy faces on Snapchat and smiling in pictures, but when we dig deeper, the reality is not so comforting. And statistically, we keep saying students are on the verge of the most severe mental health crisis, and I'm like, we are there now. This isn't coming, but it's not just students. Adults, have you ever, whenever you say, how are you doing? Ask people twice. The first time we lie. How you doing? Good, good. How you really doing? And then people start to, we're floundering. We're floundering in all aspects of life and faith and marriage. I just find there's so much happening. And usually what we say is we're exhausted. In 2012, I mentioned this already, the iPhone came out in 2007, but the line that goes forward right here, this is women, by the way, this is men. Now, the newest research by Jean actually shows this line going up for men, but this is when we began, this is depression symptoms, but what we saw is people looking for counseling in droves around here. Now, this is, again, the comparison conversation. One of the first things that we drop out of our lives when we start putting in more technology is actually physical activity. Look at the bottom one. It helps foster resilience and reduces suicide-related outcomes. It's probably one of the most important protective factors. This is a rubric I made for my Men Navigating Everyday talk. This is free online, and it's just I actually put my clients through this a lot. How are you doing on a 1 to 10? Now, I know students, you're not married, and I don't say you aren't parents anymore. I was at a Christian school, and a grade 12 student walked up and said, I know you made a joke that none of us are parents. He said, me and my girlfriend have a 2-year-old. He just said, yeah, we messed up. We have a 2-year-old. Our lives have changed forever, and I was just fascinated to hear this conversation, but most of you aren't parents. But how's your physical health? How's your mental health? How's your spiritual health doing? How are you doing with money and sexuality and loneliness and all these different things? And tomorrow I'm going to walk through mental health because I love body, mind, and soul. Your issue might be physical. Go see a doctor. Eat better. Sleep more. Exercise every day. Your issue might be emotional. Go see a therapist. Go talk to someone. Have more friendships in your life. And I do not say your issue might be spiritual because it's one of the most uncommon things in the world, and nuance matters. But I say this, your faith is the foundation and pillar of your entire life. And whatever we do, we build on that. Whether I get better or I don't, God is still God. But that's my foundation. Now, I'm going to say the same thing tomorrow because it's just important for anyone who's not here tomorrow. Like, it's interesting. Do we believe in healing as Christians? Yeah. Do all get healed? No, most don't. What do we do with that? Because usually we take the person who's not healed and we shame, we blame that they didn't do enough. If they only did more, they would be better. And when I travel this and I crisscross this country speaking, here's what I hear from people. The church has hurt me more than it's helped me. That's not okay. And we have to get better. And this is not huge things. This is just a bit of language and what we do. But every day of my life, I pray for healing. I still do. And at the same time, I'm also coming to a realization, this might be me forever. And at the same time, I eat healthy, and I go to bed in good time every night, and I exercise every day of my life, and I do all kinds of things to get better. It's this both and. And Ann Voskamp, the author, once said, miracles are never a function of anyone's goodness, their worthiness, or their earnestness, but they're always about the mysteriousness of his ways. And I'm like, oh, there's a tension to live in. And if you just want to change something so simplistic, sleep. A third of students say they've been woken up at night by a call, a text, or notification. Parents, are we any different? I have friends whose phones are just on all night. This research says that fewer hours of sleep, longer time it takes to fall asleep, and longer hours of time were spent in bed are all associated with the usage of electronic devices. There's no study in the world that says we should have TVs in our rooms, and statistically, I've read up to 40 to 50% of us all have TVs in our rooms. Like, it's so interesting. If you do this, you'll be more unhealthy. And we're like, I'm going to do it anyways. How can you sleep better? This is called sleep hygiene. No blue light 1 hour before bed. This is a hard one. And so my wife and I have now said, I go to bed about 10 to 10:30 every night, but at 9:30, when it's just us, like we do things and we'll sit down and watch a show or something. I'm not saying we can't watch TV, but I would encourage us to stop watching TV from like 7 o'clock till midnight every day. But at 9:30, I'm trying to shut off everything and go read a book, like an actual book. Have your room cool, blackout blinds, consistent bedtime, no caffeine after lunch. If you go on my social media, I did a series called Control the Controllables. I'm at a talk just like this. Girl walks up afterwards, cradling a Venti Starbucks coffee, and she says, and she pauses, she says, so my church says I'm demonized. Another conversation. She says, and she's struggling with anxiety. She says, so my church says I'm demonized. My mom and my doctor are putting me on mental health medications on Monday. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. And she's still cradling her coffee. And I'm like, decaf, right? It's 8:30 at night. She goes, oh no, caffeinated. I said, how many a day? How many coffees do you have a day? You know when people look up and to the left like they're processing? Like if you said, Brett, how many coffees? 2. If you asked me a few minutes later, like I have 2. I have 2 every day. She had to process, and she's counting, and then she's like, I don't know, 6 or 7. There's a term called Occam's razor. It's often used in sci-fi movies. The simplest answer is usually the answer. Her church says she's demonized. Her doctor says it's mental health. She needs meds. Her mom says meds. No one's asked her how many coffees you drink. Like, this is the ludicrousy of mental health and illness right now in society, of we're not doing the basics. All my clients have to go do the basics. Once we've done the basics, we can then move on to different things. But first, let's not have 7 coffees. And then we'll see how your body is responding to anxiety or not. I'm not saying don't have coffee. I'm an iced coffee person. Anybody with me? Vanilla iced coffee, light ice. But I can feel the caffeine hit my system. Anybody with me? Like, the moment it kicks in, it feels like a panic attack starting. But if I'm well and I'm doing okay, and I can feel that and be okay, but if I'm really not doing well, I'm not doing that. What do we do with all this? One of the most interesting studies says this: every off-screen activity is correlated with greater happiness. Sports and exercise, in-person social interactions, religious services, print media, homework. Now that one, I had to kind of tilt my head a bit and say, what? Like, what do you mean homework? To me, this is purpose. You might not be happy, but you've done something. You're moving forward. But everything online is negative. Reading news online, TV, video chatting, texting. Notice we're getting worse here. Social media, then computer games, and just the internet as a whole is one. I don't know, like what, the internet is a dumpster fire, like whatever that might mean. In other words, another study, the potentially negative impact of screens and social media might depend on the amount of time teens, and let's just say everyone, spends with other people. I was fascinated by this talk at how many times the answers are people. Anyone find it hard to watch full-length movies anymore? Avatar 2 came out last year, 3 hours and 20 minutes. Many people said to me, I just can't watch movies like that. They didn't just say movies like that. I can't watch movies like that anymore. Like we've switched, like there's been something. This is why shows, like one of the #1 shows still for college, university age students is still The Office. Why? Because it's 22 minutes long. And for an anxious generation, we like to watch things we've already seen. Because I can have my phone, my laptop out, the same show I've heard over and over, and it's calming, it's refreshing. You find it hard to pay attention in class, at work, even in church. How many books did you read this year? 57% of North Americans read none. Now, can I encourage us, first off, as faith-based people, we need to be into the scriptures. One study I read says upwards of 90% of Christians don't even open their Bible from Sunday to Sunday. And I might say, then do something different. If what you're doing isn't working, so go download the Bible app and find Nikki Gumbel go do Nikki Gumbel's one. It's a 30-minute, it reads to you the devotion and reads the Bible to you. Go for a walk while you're doing it. And then maybe come home and actually read. I like to use the app Read Scripture, which gives me a hand-drawn cartoon of the book of whatever. And then you start reading the book of 2 Kings, and it makes a lot more sense to you. I read physically and digitally as well. Each of them allows me different things. But other than reading the Bible, I also think we need to read. If you read 5 pages a day, you'll read 3 books a year. And so always have a book on the go, 5 pages a day. Should we, and this is a massive study, digital abstinence, meaning no technology, or digital moderation? Hands down, digital moderation. The story at the beginning where I said about the person who's never used tech, like every job students you will do is technology-based, everything. Like it doesn't matter what you're doing, there's technology being used today. And so this is what it says. After 4 months of decreasing smartphone use by 1 hour a day, less depression and anxiety, you're happier, and you have a more healthy lifestyle with physical activity. And I was trying to find some way to pull it all together, because here's what many people ask. How much time should I spend each day on tech? Many families do this, like it's an hour during the week and like 2 hours on weekends, right? We have these different rules. And in our house, we never used that. And I realized in our house, we use the rocks analogy. So you take a vase, I said vase and someone screamed out, it's vase. We're getting very critical sometimes as Christians. Let's just call it a jar and then we're fine. So 2 jars. In it, you're putting big rocks, medium rocks, and sand. Sand is the irrelevant part of life, even though we enjoy it. It's all social media. It's all YouTube. It's all streaming services. Every sports team. And someone once said, like even basketball? Like yes. Like even football? Yes. Hockey? Yeah, like it doesn't matter. It's all of that. Any TV show or movie, it's sand. The small rocks, I don't really know. It's an interesting thing. Is it chores? Meaning I could vacuum today or tomorrow. I could go grocery shopping today or tomorrow. But the big rocks, if you look at the one on the left, the sand went in first, it doesn't fit. This is when we start seeing a life that is not sustainable. But if you put the big ones in first, faith practices, family time, not just like, I always say to parents, family dinners are the most protective thing in the world. Students, if your parents don't have family dinners, ask for family dinners. And it's not about the chicken, right? It's about the moment we sit and we talk. No screens during meals, daily physical activity, screen-free time each day reading, face-to-face contact. Again, people and proper sleep. Also proper nutrition. Like this isn't an exhaustive list, but what are you going to put into your jar first? You can't put everything. So this is a way to live. Not only does this help with technology, meaning if my son was doing well in school and he was attending youth group and he had good friends and face-to-face contact, and on a Saturday him and his friends wanted to be in the basement playing video games for half a day, I didn't care. Just like when I was younger, I might rent 2 movies. Anybody remember going to Blockbuster? You rent 2 and you'd spend 4 hours. Like, it's just interesting how we're very hypocritical. We'd like, 4 hours of this game is wrong, but not of this. I'm at a talk and a father says to me, I grounded my kid because he was playing 4 hours of Fortnite. And I said, it's interesting, 4 hours is a lot of time. And I said to the dad, what did you do last night? And he said, I watched the Blue Jays game. And so did I. It was the Toronto Blue Jays New York Yankees game that went 18 innings, if I'm correct. Anyone remember this game? Like it never ended. And so I'm like, sure, you grounded him for 4 hours of that. How long was the Blue Jays game? Because it was over 4 hours long. In that moment, the father knew he was a little dead in the water, right? Like, why is what you do is fine and what your son did is not? By the way, both of those things are okay if everything in life was done. But if homework isn't done and family hasn't been done and all these other things, I think it's probably not okay. So some basic tech tips. Phone off at night. Not charging beside you. Don't even bring it in the bedroom. And then you'll say, but it's my alarm. And I'd say, well, then go buy an alarm. Like they're $9 at Walmart, or get an Amazon Alexa that you can actually just ask her to make your alarm. Unsubscribe from email subscriptions you don't need. I do think we need to start practicing digital minimalism. So I unsubscribe, like I look at what emails, what are the ones that are building me up, but like sometimes you're getting things I'm like, I don't need it from like Holiday Inn or certain, no offense to Holiday Inn, but like some things I just don't need. Now here's 2 fascinating things. If you keep your phone away from you, like if it's within arm's reach, you will use it 40% more, said one study. So my daughter Zoe would often, if she's home, take her phone and throw it under the couch or seat next to her. I'd know that because every time I come in a room and sit down, I sit on her phone. But she realizes if it's away from you, you'll use it less. So how do you get it away from your reach? And the second one is if it's face up, you'll spend 20% more time on it. If it's face down, 20% less. Like these are really easy, attainable things. Number 4 is give yourself permission to not follow what everyone else is doing. A girl in grade 9 comes up to me at one of my talks, and she's struggling with anxiety. Her hand's a bit shaky. If you struggle with anxiety, we all can kind of spot each other. And so I said, what's going on? She said, I'm really struggling with anxiety, and I need to sleep. But she said, some of my friends stay up really late, some get up really early, and some just seem to be up in the middle of the night. So I'm always trying to reply. And she goes, I really need to sleep. So I said, would you ever be willing to try something? Do your friends know you have anxiety? Yeah, they do. I said, what if you just said to them, hey, I know you guys know I'm struggling with anxiety. I'm really having a tough time. I'm going to turn my phone off at 9 o'clock, and I'm going to turn it back on at 7 o'clock. And if I miss you, it's not saying anything about you. I'll catch you in the morning. She comes back a week later to another talk I'm doing, and I'm like, oh, how you doing? How did it go? She says, so all my friends now turn off their phones at 9 o'clock and turn them on at 7 o'clock in the morning. All of them. Group of 15 young girls. We think we all have to do things, and I don't know if we're always correct with that. And I might just say, what are the tech-free zones in your life? There is a really good, some of you might have seen the movie The Social Dilemma a number of years ago. Good, little fearful, but pretty good thing on Netflix. These are all modules, the blue things on the right. They're all free. It's all on the Google Doc for you. But it's just trying to explain stuff like the attention economy. Like, there's a reason social media wants you to stay on there. They have one goal, is to keep you on there so they can show more advertising, so they can make more money. My website is just my name. It's brettallman.com. There's some cards on my table. My social media is at the top. I'm on all social media, and I do the same thing on all of them. My Amazon link is now in the middle of that. I am just about to embark on I'm making a new talk on marriage, and I'm going to start posting on how we have good marriages. I don't have a name for the talk or anything yet, but that's slowly going to be online. I also have 1,400 articles, links, TED Talks. I'm not always promoting like my own Control the Controllables. Often it's like, here's a TED Talk. Have you seen this? Like, it's just, I collect. Like, I'm a collector. And if you search for the media take home, you'll find my Google Doc. And it's what I call a living document, which means if you know someone, like, these are all people I think you should follow. It's quite good. And if you have someone I'm missing, send it through to me and I'll add it into that. My courses, some of you have done this, you already mentioned to me. The parenting one, my talk on men, is also on Right Now Media and on my YouTube channel. And through COVID, I released a 3-year project, which isn't just a book, it's 6 to 7 books in one. If 60% of people aren't reading a book a year, how would you ever get a book on mental health and sexuality and parenting and discipline and communication and so this is all in one. I will say there's 660 citations, and a number of the people that I cited have, fallen from grace or whatever it might be. So I stand by their statements. I don't stand by all the people who might make really bad decisions. Hopefully you understand what I mean by that. There's also a study guide, and if you do like audiobooks, I spent a whole bunch of time a summer ago under tarps in my office reading my own book. It's 23 and 3/4 hours long, so you need a good couple of days to go through that. That's supposed to be a joke, by the way. You're not doing 12 hours a day of that. I leave you with the very simple question: is what you're doing currently helping support the life you're working towards? I really just think we need to have intentional lives in all aspects of living, but especially with our conversation tonight on media. Now, I end every talk the same way, because somehow the talk has to finish this and be handed back to you, to where you go out and live and work and play. There's an author named John Maxwell. He's a leadership guru, and he says this: when you're challenged by anyone, ever, what is your one thing? It's the most brilliant and simple thing. What is one thing I said tonight, and you were like, that's for me, or I can do that? Now, the hard part, he says, is this: you only have 3 days to do something about it. So today is Saturday? Sorry, I always forget. Saturday. So by Sunday, Monday, by Tuesday night, if you haven't implemented, done something along the lines of the stuff you want to, statistically, you never will. And the goal of a night like this is not just that you come out and someone talks, or you listen online and someone talks and we all go home. The goal is that tonight's a moment. Your faith, your family, your media, tech use is all built on moments. And the goal is that tonight is a catalyst to spark you thinking about these moments. Tomorrow we will go deeper in the morning service at 10:30 on mental health. Anyone who wants to chat tonight, I'll be by my booth, and I'll be there tomorrow as well. And for everyone online, you can always find me on my website, brettallman.com, and I answer all my own email there as well. Thank you so much for coming out to a talk on media. And if you want to chat, I'll be back there, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night, and I'll pass it back. Bye. Thank you.
There we go. So what's your one thing? That was an incredible amount of information, and heartbreaking and expiring and challenging. And I just want to thank you for joining us tonight, and again, invite you back tomorrow for another talk at 10:30. After our time of worship, we'll be gathering and listening to Brett talk about mental health. So have a good night. Buy a book. It is an excellent book. I highly recommend it. You want it in your library, whether you are a grandparent, a mentor, an aunt and uncle, or a parent. You want this parenting, navigating everything. So have a wonderful night. We hope to see you tomorrow.